Well, hello everybody, and welcome to our very first Facebook Live, and we're doing that with episode number 33 of Who Are You and What Do You Do? I'm Chris Golian, joined today by the Brunswick area television manager as well as the manager for information and public communications, Tom Keppler, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, thank you. What a great introduction. That's why I hired you.
I had to put some, the good stuff in this one, that's for sure. It's interesting to be in this situation interviewing you. I've interviewed, Ben before, who's running the controls, so thanks to him on that one. But to be interviewing you like this, I guess the first podcast we ever did, if you haven't heard, we recently reached the century mark in podcast episodes. We were over 100, I believe, now.
Yep.
But was you interviewing me, sort of like this show. It probably was I guess we could call it like a pilot type episode of what this show would be. So we're switching positions here, and I'll be interviewing you this time, but a little bit different.
That's right.
So I'll get right into it. So Tom, how long have you been with the city of Brunswick?
I've been here just about 8 years, and I've been the manager of this department for just about 6 years. So it worked out pretty good where my predecessor, Jeff, laid the groundwork for all these years, and then he was getting ready to retire right as I was ready to start my broadcasting career. So I lucked out in that way.
Yeah, that's something that maybe people know, maybe people don't, but I think would warrant an interesting response from you is that you worked your way up. You were an intern here. So what about that process how does that affect how you manage this department and manage us?
I'd say the way you pose that question, I know every angle of it. So I've been in, when you started, you were what were you? A production assistant,
Correct.
Part-time
Yeah.
production assistant, doing the meetings late at night. I've sat in that seat, I've done it. Then I worked up to access specialist, which is where you and Ben are now, and I've sat there, I've done that, and kind of learned everything about the business on my way up. So that's one aspect of it. The other one, interning, when I went to broadcast school, half the grade was internships, and nobody really understood. Like, I'm here for you to teach me. Why is internships half the grade? That's your foot in the door. That's your chance to prove your worth. And sure, back in the day, some of the people had like internships getting coffee for morning radio shows and stuff. But you know what? Your personality speaks a lot to your attitude towards your work. So prove your worth then. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, I myself was also an intern here once upon a time, and so for sure. And so you talk about broadcasting school, so obviously that's one aspect of sort of education training. What other types of continued education or training have you done in this role?
Well, I'd say if you're not continuing to learn, then you're doing yourself a disservice, especially in a job like this where we wear so many different hats with this job. There's so many different angles about it, and it's always evolving. So if I'm not constantly learning something, I'm doing the community a disservice. I'll give you the long, bloviated answer. No, I grew up in...
That's what the show's for.
I grew up in town, so I went to Brunswick High School, graduated there in 2007. All I really knew how to do at that time, all I really enjoyed at school was band, being creative. There's something about sketching, doodling, putting, tracks down on a recording, getting your buddies together to do a band. Anytime I could be creative, I loved it. So that's, after high school, it's like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know if I want to go into business. I don't know if I want to do this. All I know is I love being creative. So I actually took a music course. I wasn't sure if I wanted to teach music or perform music or what. So I went to Youngstown State University because that was a school that accepted me that wasn't the most expensive and it wasn't too far from home. You've heard some good and some bad stories about that. So when I was there, I kind of realized I didn't get a degree in playing. My primary instrument was trombone. I didn't get a degree in that. Or maybe I could learn some of the behind the scenes, the engineering, the audio recording stuff. So that way there's kind of value to the piece of paper I'm paying $100,000 for. So that's kind of what started off this tangent of production and broadcasting. So Brunswick High School, Youngstown State, some Tri-C in there. I took some courses at the Cuyahoga Valley Career Center for audio engineering. Ohio Center for Broadcasting, that's a trade school about stuff that we do here, and their courses constantly evolve as well, so a lot of good connections through there. But other than that, I take, maybe every 6 months I find a course online about, public records and social media, and here's all of a sudden something about being a public information officer, and I just try to find things related to my role here and kind of learn a little bit more.
That's the interesting part from the hosting aspect of this show is that, as I said in your title, so not only are you managing the channels here at Brunswick Area Television, but you also function in this capacity as the information and public communications manager. So, you talked about wearing different hats. Well, there's at least 3 of them right there, and where those roles lead into, whether that's checking out or writing up press releases or different things with the website, because that's something else that we do here is operating the city's website and making those updates. Social media, a huge part of it. That's what we're doing right now, trying to expand that social media footprint, so to speak. So, how do you manage all of these different facets? Because all of them are time intensive, or more importantly, focus intensive. You don't want to put out a press release with misspellings. You don't want to have a show coming out that government programming that we're doing and we have no intro. It's just boom, right there. So there's a lot of fine details. So how do you keep all those things straight all the time?
Well, it's difficult sometimes because there's a lot that goes behind the scenes, and I'm sure about, but our viewers and people who don't really do this for a living, they might not realize how much goes into a production like this. And one example, I don't know. My joke is I ask a lot of questions because I make a production out of everything. This is, this is a production, but one example is we have our public users and we train them how to do everything. And some of them pick it up right away and, I know what I'm doing. Then they form a template and then they kind of design the show around it. But because it's an art form, some people kind of struggle with that, and their aha moment, I call it, takes a little longer to get there. But that's fine. Everybody's different. But that just goes to show that, like, if it takes someone 2 years to finally get an episode that they're proud of, that they can build their entire series on, and you think about it, we whipped this together in 10 minutes like that. That says a lot. That coming up next logo, it might have looked cool. It might have been up for 30 seconds, but that took some time to put together, And that goes for everything. I will say, as much as we would love to just sit here and run a TV studio and do productions, City Hall would call this Tommy's Funhouse. No, we do have a lot of serious things to take care of there. And in both instances, I can say the same. We have a solid team. So in writing press releases, I just sent one out for a groundbreaking for the new fire station on Hadcock Road. That one, for example, we had a short little meeting, and Chief Glauner, he can get you the facts quick, or he can elaborate, and we kind of finesse the message, and we try to plan the event at the same time in certain ways. So sometimes I'm just the middleman, sometimes I'm helping create an event, sometimes anywhere in between there. But when I put pen to paper and I format it on the city letterhead, I always have someone else proofread it. No different than, it's difficult with like an hour-long show, but let's say we're doing a promo or a PSA. Guys, come over, watch us. What do you think? And Ben might say, that's crooked. You misspelled that. Well, So in both cases, we have a very solid team behind us that's willing to lend an extra eye to proofread, and they're busy too, so it might take time, but it's government, nothing works too quick. No. Which, working with this, I've actually learned that that's kind of for a reason. Like the natural checks and balances, like let's say we want to make 303 5 lanes and take all the businesses, driveways and everything. People would throw a fit. Like, if we had it where we could just sign it into law and do it, that's a problem. So I kind of learned that government takes its time for a reason, in a way. It's frustrating as it is as a taxpayer and a resident, but I'm kind of seeing that side of things too with this job.
Yeah, it really does open up your perspective to things, and you really see those intricate details. It's interesting just sitting here doing this show with a department that I know about. So, so some of these questions, but for everyone out there, we'll shift over to the Brunswick area television specific things and so talk to me about the three channels that we operate and what is on each one of them and where they're at.
Oh, here we go. No, we have three channels, which, by the way, there's only 3 employees here. So my hat's off to you guys, because handling 3 channels, you got to think, people say, Fox 8, they do this. The big-time networks, they do all this, but it's only 3 of us. And we create all the content for 2 of those channels. The government and the recreation channel, that's 100% us. So you still cover the meetings for Brunswick and Brunswick Hills Township. We have a few informational show, Golden Years. We used to do a lot with the veterans and the one office there. During the pandemic, some of the priorities shifted with them, and they haven't come in and done the same show. But I love to see that get going again. But just certain informational show. We do a lot with my boss, the city manager, Carl DeForest. It's a good idea for a show if when you pitch it, he's like, I'll host that. I'll be there, So that's kind of validating in that way. So the government channel isn't necessarily where we can have the most fun, but it's where the information's the most important in a way. The recreation channel, that one we do a lot with Mike Carbon, the personal trainer over at the rec center, and we have like special events like their half-off sale and whatever's going on at the rec center. We try to promote that there. That one, I don't want to say we don't prioritize, but that one doesn't go out to all our cable operators. So if you have BreezeLine, you don't receive that channel. So some of those shows, it's redundant, but we'll air them on the government channel when they debut, and then we'll kind of rerun them on the recreation channel, just so that way everybody, if you don't have Spectrum, or you're not willing to go out and search for everything on demand, it's easy to overlook some of those shows. So we want to make sure everyone has access to it. Speaking of access, public access. Now, the way I word this is that's the most unique and rewarding part of our job. So anyone who lives in Brunswick or Brunswick Hills can come in and create a show. And I love when I don't love when people judge each other, but you hear somebody, I could do a better job on that show than this guy. Come in and do it. Okay. You can do your counterpoint show, and it's as local as it gets because it's our neighbors talking about what's going on in our neighborhood or showing off their talents or talking about their church or their religious belief, and anything from church services to opinion to entertainment. We do have a policy, there's a few rules. There's a line we can't cross, but outside of that, I'd say it's a great place to express your freedom of speech, and that's kind of a rare thing these days.
Right. I mean, I say it all the time. I think that everybody could have a show. I don't know. I'll go as far as to say that everyone should have a show of their own. Now, maybe that means it's only a few minutes show, but still.
Are you saying you don't have enough to do? No.
Before I get myself into more trouble, yeah. But so that is really true, and as far as the uniqueness of it, and so to play on that, obviously there are other cities surrounding Brunswick, and so how does this department compare to similar ones in other cities? What makes it so different, or what makes it unique? I guess to keep using that word.
So you talk about expanding education and knowledge. I've written other cities from different states even, and what do you guys do for communications? What do you guys do for this? I have yet to find another communications department that acts the exact same as any other communications department. And part of that is we actually receive franchise fees from cable operators. And some of this is kind of historic from the 80s. Some of it was redone in the 2000s. But that money was actually meant for cable video production at the local level. And some cities did away with that. Some cities just let the cable operators handle that. And we were very lucky where when my predecessor, Jeff, was hired on to kind of create that in the city of Brunswick, not only did he do a fantastic job, but he kind of integrated everything, communications together. So that's why other cities, for example, Medina, I do believe they work on the city's website and handle press releases and stuff. I can't speak to that. But the channel lineup's different. So where we have the government, the public, and the recreation, and back in the day, we used to do the educational channel too. But then they formed the beat and they kind of have their own strategy. So that's, you call that a sister station. They do their own thing. They're on the same
At
cable
least
operators.
a cousin.
Yeah.
At least a cousin.
And it's cool for the kids to have this opportunity as well. Not to say we would ever turn anyone down. Kids are allowed to come in here and be on our public channel as well, as long as their parent or guardian vouches for them, you know.
Right.
But Medina, for example, they only do government and schools, so they don't have a public channel. So they don't have a need for public editing bays like we do. They don't have a need for walk-in traffic like we have. And that's just the way they do things. Now, one of their main cable operators is Armstrong, who had their own kind of public channel as well. So they still had that, but it wasn't within the government necessarily. And then you look to Wadsworth, and Wadsworth does things completely different from Medina or the way we are. So, but I do believe the way Jeff, my predecessor, handled the business here, that actually benefited Medina and Wadsworth as well. Because you got to think, other cities, Cleveland, how many are in Cuyahoga County as a whole? You might have Avon, you might have Cleveland. There might be another one, I don't know. I believe Hudson has one, but that's going farther east. But they're rare. And then you think Medina County, here we are, the big cities in Medina County each have their own channel. So that's something to be proud of.
Right, and that's something that I think is rather fascinating getting into this line of work, and you see it, and it really is. I mean, it varies drastically differently from every place that you go, how it's handled, and then even if, moving up the government ladder to counties and then state, and then, I mean, it's interesting just how different it is, even though many of the responsibilities or many of the things, they want to get out information just as much as we do, but maybe they don't have the exact same. Yeah,
this is government, so not everybody wants to play as clean as we do, So,
but to go back kind of to the root of this, what got you interested in doing this type of work, Tom?
I guess I kind of answered that with the anything creative. That's what I love to do. When I learned the audio engineering and recording, then you kind of realize, oh, I can just add a camera. I can get into this kind of stuff. My initial goal, if you want to ask what sparked it initially, probably was doing music videos, probably was doing stupid, as public access is kind of an underground source of media. I was into ska, which is kind of an underground music. And so doing those skater videos, where we're playing our horn music. So probably something along those lines, this screwing around with the guys making stupid videos, and then learning that, oh, if we just learned how to polish this up and actually make it look presentable, there's probably some opportunities ahead of me,
Yeah. Oh, always like to ask that one, and yeah, you did touch on it, but I figured I'd give you the avenue to explain yourself a little bit more. So, we talked about your various responsibilities and the different things that we do. So describe your typical day, if there even is such a thing. By
the way, I gave you that.
That's true. That's true. You did give me that one to ask, and it's always not only does it warrant a great response, but it always gets it really gives you the full picture of someone's role within the city when you ask them, oh, what's a typical day like? And that's why I started putting the caveat in there. Is there even such a thing?
Because everybody
said, I wish there was a typical day.
Yeah. And it's like I said before, there's some days where I'll wear that hat and I can do nothing but production here. I can help the public. I can, create promos for events, or that's when my productions look real nice, when I don't have too much going on. But then other days, all of a sudden, I spend the entire day at City Hall. I'm rewiring the audio system, or I'm at Town Hall doing something similar. We had a camera issue over there. I was up in the ceiling at Town Hall. How many other people can say that?
Yeah.
So day by day, there's some days where we are problem solving and we're chasing our tails a little bit. It's like, what is causing this? And we've gotten pretty good at it. If you've ever taken a tour here, which I always recommend, and we go by the playback room, I usually say, this is my migraine room, because when something in here goes wrong, it takes me all day and it frustrates me. But I tell you what every cable in here does, so that went a long way as far as problem solving. And then just sometimes, like I said, other departments need help. Sometimes everyone is different, in my opinion. So where someone might have a super analytical thought process, they might not be reaching the entire audience. They might be reaching the same people that think the way they are. So I think other people realize that, and they bounce ideas off of me like, okay, what would you do? Maybe their way's better, maybe my way's better, maybe something in between. I think most of life there's a balance to everything. So from talking to you guys, we brainstorm things. Like, we don't just say, oh, let's do Facebook Live and then flip a switch and do it. We might talk about it for 10, 15 minutes and then make a little checklist what we need to get going. So no day is typical, but I almost think that's why I love the job. So if I was just at the desk writing reports every day, not that I'm the type to get bored, but it wouldn't be challenging. So always going with the flow, always kind of making left turns when we were planning to make a right turn, or helping people with this creativity, that's the best.
And just because of, I've already talked about it a little bit, but the unique perspective of doing this interview, I think some of the most, I'll go ahead and say the most fun parts of this are when you can combine a few of those things together. So we were putting out information about the road levy, going through, and we used a variety of ways in order to do that. One of which was us making a Back to the Future joke video starring you and myself in the Bat van, taking off, just like Back to the Future. And so it was goofy, and we got the service director, Paul Barnett, at the time involved and stuff like that. But it's kind of everything coming together. So there's a serious side, road levy, improving and fixing roads, important, serious government business. But where we're going, we don't need roads. Fun, have a little bit more of a good time with it. And so, not always does that happen, but I think that's also part of the uniqueness of this department is when it lends itself, we can usually come up with a fun way to do something like that.
Oh yeah.
Or even with just the generation of a show like What's Going On or Community Focus that you talked about Carl wanting to host, and so that are the morning announcements for the city as far as what's going on, and then showcasing some great organizations within this area and surrounding areas that are doing great work. And obviously they, much like anybody else, they need help, they need volunteers, they need assistance, they need people to come to fundraisers and things like that. So when you can kind of combine some of those things is always the best.
Yeah, and much to your point earlier where everybody should have a show because everybody has their own unique point of view. Carl hosting those shows, there's been similar shows. Golden Years might have the same guest on that Carl had on Community Focus last year, but Carl might think of a different question than Lori Betts, the host of that Golden Years show, might ask. So to hear from the people invested in the organizations actually come out and spend time with us and actually participate with our hosts is great, and that's where we welcome all of that. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. And so as we move to sort of wrap things up here, I always end with this question. What do you enjoy most about your job?
Hanging here with you, Chris. No.
Being on Facebook Live for this episode of Who Are You and What Do You Do?
Yeah, it's a new one, but Facebook Live, no. Just the fact that there's always a challenge, that we got a good team behind us. Kind of just, I think all my answers previously were my favorite things about this job. The fact I get to work creatively, the fact I get to serve my hometown. Like I said, I grew up in the area. And how many people grew up here and didn't know this place existed? So we're kind of a hidden gem. Right now I'm trying to give credit where it's due to our viewers and to our volunteer producers, because the public channel wouldn't exist without them. If we didn't have any viewers, then what would be the interest in any of that? So I owe all of them a debt of gratitude, because this is, not only is this fun, but it's important, and I hope it continues well into the future, because when you're this close involved, you definitely recognize the need, because all the other departments, if every department had their own website, how much information do you think would be clear out there? Like, people would know, for example, the rec center kind of puts their schedules and everything on their own WebTrack website, but the easiest way to find it is just go on the city's website, which we manage, and go right up there. So that's also, when they suggest changes to the website, that might be where we pull information for the channels and show ideas too. So in a way, we're not reporters. We're not going to go over there and ask them the hardball questions, but there's definitely need for public communication. And I know we've hit this on the head a few times too in our recent broadcasts, is everybody receives information a different way. So some people learn about our podcast through our newsletters. Some people learn about our newsletters through the Facebook Live. Now some people are. So I believe if you have a department who is willing and able to check all of those boxes, then you're better off for it. That's our duty to the community, I believe. And I'm proud to do it. That's my favorite part.
I was about to say that was a very good answer. If there's anything else that you want to leave the audience with, leave the Facebook Live audience with, I'll say this just to give you a second, so I don't have to put you totally on the spot. But stop on by, come for a tour, see what it's like here. Whether you're interested in doing your own show, whether you're interested in, maybe somebody that would like to do their own show, or come see a hidden gem. Just stop on by, see what we're up to, see what we're doing here. I think there's some really great things that we're doing, and we're going to continue to do them and try to find even better ways to do them. But just stop on by.
Yeah. I would say, due to our policy and due to professionalism, there's certain things we do a certain way, but we are always open for suggestions, even if it's something that's too expensive or not in the realm of reality. I'll hear you out, because that's where some of our best ideas come from. What if we could do this? So yeah, if you've never been here, come check us out. Give us suggestions if you got it. And thanks for tuning in. And by the way, I didn't want this to be all about me on the Facebook Live, since it's our first one, but this was our test. We've been thinking about it for a while, and we didn't have who are you and what do you do for this week, so it's like 2 birds, 1 stone. Let's do it. So
yeah, let's try it out, and we'll see. Certainly something we haven't done before, and so naturally, instead of just me doing a mic check or something like that on Facebook, let's do the show. Let's try it out. And I think that you're working here, you're not too bashful about anything, where some of the who are you and what do you do guests are a little bit more hesitant, I guess would be the best way to put it. So
let's hammer that home, though. How many of the people do you have come over here say, I don't want to, and then at the end there you have a big smile? That wasn't so bad. That was easy. So.
I would dare say all of them, the majority. Some people aren't very nervous at all. Other people, are a little bit hesitant, but usually by the end of it, they're, oh, okay, exactly like you said. Okay, that wasn't so bad. That was actually kind of fun. And exactly, that's the whole point of it. Talking about what you do and who you are, and is fun. The information that, the goal is to try to go beyond the job title or the website bio. Just because those things are important and obviously serve a purpose, but there's a lot more to the people that are that are behind those things than just that. So it's fun to, especially when I first started the show and I was newer here. I didn't know everybody in the city, so I got to meet everyone and figure out, oh, so that's who handles those things, and oh, so that's what that means. So
that's why I liked you hosting this show. I don't know if I ever told you this, but not to say you were naive or anything, but you didn't understand the way the city government worked, so you're kind of learning in real time. So something that might be in the back of my head, yeah, that's the way it is. You were probably asking from the point of view of a viewer, like, oh, how was I to know we do shred days every year,
Exactly.
French shipping.
One of my favorites. I didn't even know that it was one of my favorites, but now I do, and life is much better because of it. So, well, Tom, thanks for the opportunity here to do the first Facebook Live. Thanks for sitting down and having this chat and sort of switching up the roles here as usually you're kind of, I don't want to say you're always interviewing me, but
Well, thanks for the break. I get back to work now.
yeah. So check out this episode and all the others at bat.vipit.com or on various podcasting platforms. So until next time, see everybody.
Shout out. There we go.
Brunswick podcasts are powered by Brunswick Area Television. All BAT productions are produced by myself, Tom Keppler, and Ben Staunton. Shout out to Ben for the Facebook Live work this afternoon. See you, everybody.
Thank you.